Cheers, salute to a trendy Tuesday 0DT team. This is your routine debrief. We're going to start today's cool down, as we always do, by reviewing the day's results. Good day, no two ways about it. We came in last night long based on the reasons we discussed in yesterday's video, and we were correct. So the trend did continue today, and that gave us the little first batch of futures profits there. And we added to that with a couple successful ES scalps just based on the assumption discussed in this morning's newsletter. So, what was that assumption? Well, based on the contracting pivots in both ES and VX, we had that trend implication, and that was really supported by the open. It was an open drive today, and until price crossed back through that open, it was just take the puts at the first device signal, manage as usual, and that's what we did. So good day in that sense. And just following through on that, the question is are we going to get that same trend continuation tomorrow? Are we in some sort of big squeeze here, or should we look for a pullback? I think the market has already indicated that we're probably in for a little bit of chop. So we had the Microsoft earnings, and obviously we pulled back on that. This is the 4-hour chart, and you can see that we're back into that first demand zone, that blue box you see there. And I think the most important thing to notice here is what we're seeing in the macro chart. So we'll go back, we'll explain that arrow, but first let's look at this macro chart. Well, there you have it. That white ellipse that we've been talking about, price did pierce into it. It did tap the POC at about 38.70, and it was rejected at the end of the day. Is the Microsoft earnings move a symptom of that? I'm not so sure. Perhaps it just aligned at the same time. But the important thing is we did test that POC. And so we're going to be watching that area over the next couple days. I'm not so sure that we're going to directly burst through that tomorrow. We may have a run at it. We'll be looking for false breaks if that occurs. Um, but really, what occurred with this high today is we pushed into that POC on low relative volume. So again, note where that arrow is, by the way, for later. But as you can see here, this little red histogram, that was today's volume, and it was low. It was not only below average, it was kind of in the outlier levels of low volume relative to what we've been seeing. And that combined with the fact, going to go back to our other chart here, that combined with the fact that we are overbought and that the divergence when we became overbought today, so we made a higher high even though RSI made a lower low, I think those two factors imply that we may get some sort of sustained sell-off here. I don't really think anything significant. I'll tell you exactly where I think we're going when we get to the chessboard. But perhaps that high is safe, and they may take a run at it. But I think it's a good look to fade that first as we pop back up there, because as you can see, we're pushing. So we close the day outside balance, and we're pushing back into it. So if you're looking at that warm-up document, which I encourage everyone to look at, it's linked in the bio. We're kind of appearing to be entering a setup one scenario here. So it's that divergence on the RSI, which you see down here, that's super important. And I think that the level to be watching from here on out for the question, to answer the question, are we in a continued uptrend or are we about to enter another period of chop, is that balance area low, that big white arrow that is, you can see a red horizontal line as well there. That level to me is the primary support. We remain in an uptrend until that level is breached with some strength. So speed and aggression around that level to the downside is going to indicate to me that we're entering that that choppy type tape again. But until that happens, I'm going to assume we're in an uptrend and I'm going to be buying the dip. So just to reiterate, if we look at the macro chart again, you can see the arrow. Just a hand tool here. I'm going to zoom in just a little. You can see it corresponds to the top of this box here. This LVN right between 37.40 and 37.60 is going to be really important to watch going forward. So what happens if we get a sustained pullback? Are we Are we selling off again? Are we going to make new lows on the year? I'm not so sure. I'm going to switch to the chessboard chart and tell you why. Okay. So that the bottom of balance there, it's about 37.30 in SPX. That is telling us that we're in the uptrend, and that is a super important level. Okay, so we've seen it on the long-term chart. Again, it's going to be about 37.40, 37.60 on ES, but I'm looking at about 37.30 on SPX, and we're still in uptrend until that breaks. However, we have to get through a lot of demand, in my opinion, before we get there. And if you look at this chart here, you see the white ellipse. This is kind of my high probability buy the dip, the first place that I'll be looking to buy the dip. So we have a poor low that we created in the overnight session from last night, and that is combined with a naked POC from that significant TPO distribution here. So I'm going to be really interested to see how price reacts to that level. In terms of longs for tomorrow, I would really like to see this level tested before getting involved in longs. Now, if we open up around here, I think it's going to be a good pivot chop territory. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But until then, that's kind of the first area I'm looking at is about, let's say, 3760 to 3770 in SPX. And on top of that, it's important to watch what happens with volatility here. So we finally broke this wedge that we were talking about yesterday. We broke below it. I'm going to be interested to see what volatility does when it tests it at about 29. And then again, if it can make a sustained push into that, let's say 29.80 area. So easy enough. We'll discuss more in tomorrow's newsletter, but that's what I have for you as we go into this Globex session. As always, the engagement links, the best places to reach me are in the bio. You can also see the playbook, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the comment section of this video as well. So that's all I have for you tonight. More tomorrow, hoping for another exciting day. And until then, stay classy.